Cheers, folks. How's it going? Um, I made this little video just because I want to update, review, provide an overview, etc. So I'll start with some nuts and bolts, and then I'll move into the more abstract or the more philosophical. So nuts and bolts number one, I just wanted to kind of briefly tell you where I am in terms of the grading process. I'm in process of grading project number 2 finals, and so some of you will see your scores posted, and some of you will see your scores posted within the next couple of days. So I'm getting all of that taken care of. I'm also up to date on the blogs thus far, and I will grade your blog number 12 by tomorrow. So you'll have all your responses there. Now, I want to talk briefly about what's happening in this third unit. And I think the best way of doing that is to contrast the third unit with what we just did in the second unit. That is that the second unit really was all about how to reason well, right? I used that language of sophistication, and you guys went ahead and you wrote these really kind of sophisticated arguments. We looked at those Toulmin ideas, we looked at how to build strong argument, how to provide support for claims, etc. Well, in this unit, to an extent, we're going to do the opposite of that. That is that in this unit, really, we're going to look at how persuasion functions in irrational ways. And so the way that I've put it here is we're going to look at how people persuade via association and emotion. And I think kind of one of the easiest ways to understand the distinction between these two units is to think about driving down like a major thoroughfare, like El Camino Real or something. And just think about all of the fast food restaurants that you pass. Think about kind of the gas stations or the smog centers, all of this stuff, right? They all have their signs up. And what we never see is we never see like strong, well-reasoned body paragraphs that tell us why we should eat a particular hamburger, right? Or why we should get our smog checked at a particular location. Instead, we see bright colors, ambiguous language that makes us feel good, right? We start to make associations. We get impacted emotionally, and we decide that this is where we're going to eat, or this is what we're going to buy, etc. In other words, I've called the third unit, right, popular communication, because I see that in the swirl around us, we often don't make up our minds because we're reasoning. We make up our minds because we feel good about certain products and certain ideas. And so I'm interested in what you guys have to say as we move into this third unit. Now, for me, there are two specific components that have to do with this sort of persuasion. One is propaganda, and I don't necessarily mean propaganda in terms of kind of World War II propaganda, although that does definitely play a role. But I mean more so kind of the propaganda of everyday life, right? Why we eat at the restaurant, why we use that smog center, why we buy the clothes we buy, etc. Because in a sense, if we think everything is an argument, then we think, how are we being persuaded by these signs that are on the side of the road or by this restaurant menu, etc. And so the thinking here is that propaganda is all around us. And so let's investigate how it works and how it gets us to make decisions that can potentially be irrational. And the second component here has to do with the mediums of communication. And I used that example of a body paragraph earlier. And in a sense, it's ridiculous because, of course, we would never be able to read a body paragraph as we drive by so quickly, right? And so the medium of communication has a lot to do with what can actually be communicated. In other words, certain mediums may not allow for us to think in sophisticated ways. And for Tuesday's class, that's exactly what I'm asking you guys to start to consider. I've provided a reading for you, and I've also given you an example or a little video to take a look at that'll help you see that. And then I want you guys to think about that stuff as it plays out in the novel and as it plays out in the real world. And now the final point I would like to make is how we bring all of this stuff together, right? Because Unit 3, as much as it's about popular communication, is also about coming to the end of Fahrenheit 451. And for me, there's one big idea to consider as we come to the end of the novel. And that is, what does an individual do when he or she confronts the way that society works? And in the novel, we get to see how Montag, as he becomes more and more critically literate, starts to exercise his agency and starts to make some real decisions for how he's going to live his life. And so parallel to that, I want us to consider, right, that as we become more and more critically literate, what that means in terms of the sort of thinking we apply to the swirl that's around us. So take all of those ideas in and have some fun as you move into Unit 3. If you have questions, let me know. Take care.